G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined today by the Astropub and Lokenplays. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad, thank you very much. Yourself? You doing all right?
Yeah, 2:30 a.m. Loving it. Loving it. It's great. Thanks.
And we're not even at IAE levels yet. So you will reach a level of you'll reach levels of tiredness that no man has experienced before.
I'll just be asleep in a chair, I think, by the last day, but we'll see. So yeah. So Paul, I'm gonna let you intro what we're doing today, because if it all goes to shit, I can blame you.
It's my fault.
Yeah.
It was partially my idea anyways. Yes. So like this is something that. But before we do that, you've all seen this wonderful, beautiful man up here. You've probably never seen him before.
No. So this is what I mean. He is your fault. If this goes to shit,
he's my fault.
Yeah, he's your fault. Yeah.
So
I'm
Loken,
his responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes. Loken, since you're new to the Inforunners, I will just say, everyone, you need in chat for this video in the comments is say hello to Loken, because he is brand new to the Inforunners, the first a new Inforunner to the channel. Yep. Who are you, Loken? What do you do outside of the Inforunners, and where can they find you?
Yeah.
So, to everyone out there, hello, my name is Lokenplays, and first of all, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be part of the Inforunners and be brought into the fold, so thank you guys, really appreciate it. As for me, I've been a content creator on Twitch for 8 years. I've been doing all sorts of stuff, but mainly speaking these days, I focus down on sci-fi, simulation, and strategy games. Those are my usual favorites, along with FPS stuff, and that blends beautifully with Star Citizen, which is my primary game I play. It's a game I absolutely adore. I've been backing it since 2015, so like a lot of you out there, got a lot of skin in the game, so to speak, and I'm just as interested as everyone else is about the development, where it's going, and how it's coming along. Also, I do YouTube and TikTok. YouTube and TikTok are both very new, so the YouTube channel is now solely focusing almost exclusively now on Star Citizen related content, and the TikTok's, well, it's a TikTok. But those have been doing for about 7 or 8 months. So that's me. You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, all those. Do you want me to plug those, or
go for it, man. Go for it.
Okay. So I just didn't know if I was going to overstep my bounds there. No. I'm live 4 days a week on Twitch. That's Tuesday through Friday. I usually start about 9 p.m. GMT, 4 p.m. EST. I'm also then twitch.tv/Lokenplays, on YouTube at Lokenplays, TikTok at Lokenplays. Easy enough. Easy
branding.
I think
yes.
I think we'll have to set him up for a Fix My Fleet as well at some point. Well.
Probably, yeah.
So we'll go through his ships and cut those apart. And I also probably get him in for this year's tier list again. How did you just really quick? How did you find that this year? Because Badges was saying he loved it, right? With the
tier list.
Yeah, how we all wrote the numbers on the thing. He thought it was hilarious. Yes. But because it's very hard to get like 8 people now on camera at the same time. So I just creatively came up with that one, and so we might do that again. We'll see. Also,
and for those who are new, because there's a lot of new faces in the Star Citizen community, not just Loken, who's been around the community for a very long time, but like newer viewers. For those who don't know, we actually do a tier list where we talk about the best ships in the game, and it's just a fun, like, we all get together and shoot the shit. That's not my fault, chat. That's not my fault. That's Loken's. That's Execute's fault.
2:30 in the morning. Why am I getting notifications? I have no idea. But anyway,
he throws me under the bus, and then which is so he can ruin it. Yeah, that's fine. We have a good time and all that kind of stuff. So let's get started with the topic at hand, which is on why you clicked on this screen in the first place, which is CIG's communication. And I like to start off by saying CIG, whether you like it or not, they are getting better at communicating. What do y'all think?
Yeah, absolutely. CIG is, for the most part, it is one of the better communicators out there for sure. They've in part needed to be, but they are definitely getting better all the time, and they do take feedback and they do make changes that are positive whenever they receive it. At least from my experience.
I think they can be a little bit slow to move, but they are definitely making progress. what's the term you used before, Paul? And I agree with it, which was the goldfish. They're like a goldfish.
They have a memory of a goldfish. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Where they just forget about things that they did wrong in the past and just constantly move forward, which is good. But the same problem is that they don't reflect.
And sometimes they make the same mistake multiple times.
Yes.
So yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I still think they're learning, but I think a part of that too is there's probably some new people in there as well, and so they make the same mistakes that the old people made. So yeah.
And I have to say this because when we talk about communications, someone's going to bring up the pledge. For those of you who don't know the pledge was a thing that they made at the very beginning of Kickstarter, which was effectively, we will treat you like investors. This is a different process because we are community funded. We will not take you for granted. And people have thrown that at CIG's face a lot of times. Like, we're not really investors. You need to do that. And my only thought is, have you ever talked to a dev about how they deal with investors? They close the door and lock it, and they try to do everything they can to prevent investors to show up as game developers because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Yeah. So they don't want suits to be there. Yeah. So yes, they are treating us exactly like investors.
Very on brand.
Doing a marvelous job. Exactly. They're doing a marvelous job. They're completely honest in that regard.
It is important to remember though that to remind CIG that we are investors. It's a completely different process than what normal development is like. And I do want to bring up, because we have Loken here as well, because Loken does a lot more variety than most of us, so he has a lot more like intimate interactions with game developers that are launching new games all the time. So Loken, in your experience, how different is CIG? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they on par with other developers in terms of their communication?
So CIG as a whole, as I said in the just a little while ago, they are pretty damned good. They tend to be very communicative, tend to give a lot of information, and at least in comparison to traditional game developments, because obviously we always have to remember that this is a very different process. This is a crowdfunded game, the biggest crowdfunded game in history, and it continues to break records all the time. CIG's path is different, but if you look at any traditional game development, I want to come back to that point a little later on, I'm sure we'll discuss it again. But if you look at any other traditional game development, I mean, for example, even myself, from the perspective of a content creator who has worked intimately with companies on activations, releases, and then post content, I'll take the example of Amazon's New World. That's my most recent experience. I've been a part of the Battle of New World, which is a massive activation, lots of money thrown around, their launch, and then more recently the Return to Eternium event currently going on. The level of information given to us as content creators is very heavily curated. It's not particularly transparent, and there's definitely a lot. It's very drip fed, and it can be quite difficult for information of any real use to kind of get out there. That said and done, though, most traditional game development studios don't need to rely on a myriad of hundreds of thousands of micro investors. Basically, they rely on traditional publishing methods and traditional financial methods of investors, so they can go closed doors, they can be quiet, and they can just be, we're making a game. 5 years later, here's the game, and only start that machine of information closer to the time. So what I'm trying to say is that for CIG definitely has taken this on board. They definitely have realized that they need to be transparent, and on the whole, they're pretty good. But I think, as we were all saying a little earlier on, they can be better. Absolutely can do better.
Yeah, I find that interesting too with Amazon, because it's obviously got the Lumberyard engine. So there's obviously some part, you almost wonder what they're taking from what the engine part that Star Citizen's putting into it and putting into their own stuff as well. So yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, coming from if you look at just the game development side standpoint, I mean, I know that you've got some experience. I've got a degree and a master's in games design. Studios talk, studios share stuff all the time. I guarantee, because CIG has put so much time and so much effort into developing that engine and pushing it forward, more than anyone else, I reckon, out there. Yeah, I'm sure that New World borrows technology from it. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Wish they could implement some swimming though.
Well, it goes both ways. That's ironic because they don't have swimming in either. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if, because CIG is working on swimming right now, if swimming gets added into Star Citizen and suddenly 3 months later it ends up in New World. Yeah. I will also like to point out that, like, while we're talking about transparency, there is some legal limits. Like, CIG is better than most, but there are some legal limits that when we talk about what we want CIG to do, it's important to note that there are laws in the EU, the UK. I know at least for California, there may be some laws in Texas which have to do with privacy concerns. So, to give an example, say the head of the EU-PU team, right? His daughter gets, or their daughter gets like cancer, heaven forbid, and they have to take leave to go take care of their family, and so that's going to delay the development because they're going to have to find somebody else to replace them, or that's going to slow some stuff down. CIG can't say that. They can't talk about that at all. That's a private issue with the family, taking family leave. We will never get that information. So there are always going to be some limitations in terms of what we want to know, and that's important to keep in mind when we're talking about more transparency. There is going to be limits. You're not going to get a webcam installed into the offices where you can see where everyone's doing. You're just not going to be able to look over the stacks of everyone's like code bases. Like
Star System Big Brother.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that'd be terrifying. Terrifying.
Jared just walking around in underpants in the space office.
But that goes for like, not just for that, it goes for like people leaving the company, people fired from the company, people moving to different divisions, whatever. Like there are lots of things that they can't tell us about, which will affect development, but they just won't be able to factor in, let alone tell us.
Yeah, because they're personal issues essentially, and you can't air an employee's personal information essentially.
Yeah, exactly, and that will have an effect on the speed of development and may cause a delay.
Sometimes major delays, especially if it's a key person that's left or for whatever reason, and we'll never know about it. So there's as Paul says, it's a very good point to make, and something that really needs to be factored in. There is no such thing as absolute transparency because you just can't. You just, as much as we'd love it, and it's just not possible.
Yeah. Now this is a caveat because I wanted to make sure that people knew we're not saying CIG is terrible communication.
No.
We're just saying there could be improvements.
Making them feel warm and fuzzy before we really drill. No.
Yeah. This is the part where like the needle's going in to draw that blood, or to hit that booster shot that you're gonna get. Like it's gonna sting a little bit right now, but
this won't hurt a bit. Stab. Ow.
Yeah. Now we're gonna go up to the parts where CIG has fallen flat on their face, and I mean like comically banana peel slap face down into the muck kind of thing.
So let's look at some really recent examples then, Paul. What's some really recent ones?
I think the most recent is the cargo refactor. And this is a great example because if you think about this, if you read exactly what was on the release view, the release view of what was the cargo refactor, you knew that all it was making so that it's physicalized cargo that you can move around, and that there's going to be a new HUD, a new like mobile glass app that you can use for cargo. There was no loading, unloading. There was no timers. There was no mission attached to it. None of that stuff said anything like that. So it was exactly what they said. The problem is, and I get shit for this all the time when I say this, but people don't read. Gamers don't read. They don't focus on those sorts of things. So as a result,
guilty of that.
Yeah.
I am absolutely guilty of that.
Like how many people do you talk to and they never do the tutorial? They just they just cut straight. Yeah, I'm professional. Max level. Let's go. Bang. Pancake.
I'm a gamer. I don't need a tutorial.
Yeah.
But as a result, I know I've seen a lot of people, and I think Spectrum's is a good example of this, of people saying like, this is not what I expected. I wanted a little bit more. What is this? And the reality is you're always going to get that. but that could have been handled better. That could have been because CIG knew that was going to be the case from at least since mid this year. Like it's at least since they updated the progress tracker. Obviously they wanted to do more, but they never did a video talking about this beforehand. They never did a dev post on Spectrum. There was no attempt to communicate and set expectations for what actual cargo refactor was going to be until now.
It's really interesting you mentioned this because I've actually been doing a video on 318's cargo refactor and what it actually entails, and doing the research for that video, I was like, whoa, hang on a second, this is really pared down to what I was expecting, you know, because as the last time I really remember CIG making a big deal of this is right back when we're talking about the raft and the fact that it has that big crane and it's going to be a part of the cargo refactor, and you're going to be able to move and unload cargo, and these big SU boxes are going to like go chick and then be put on. And I was like, this is awesome, this is great. And then they say at the time later on in the year, and I'm like, cool. So now when I hear about the cargo refactor again, coming again from a person who, you know, I do maintain a level of informant, probably not quite the forensic detail that some of my, you know, friends and folks here do, but you know, I keep myself relatively informed. I didn't know that was going to change. I didn't know that was happening, and I'm a person who damn well streams this game. You know,
they said a little weird perception too, because even in the the trailer they did for AIE, I believe they have 2 nomads flying, and they have lots of different sizes of cargo boxes on the back. But now it looks like we're just getting one extra.
One SU.
Yeah.
And like, there's nothing wrong with talking about those things, but it's obvious that the plan changed sometime mid this year, and they didn't communicate it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. There could be, we'll talk about many other things down a little bit later about some of these other things, but this is an example of this could have been this Band-Aid could have been ripped off in July, and people would have not bothered. People would have set expectations properly, and then maybe if they added more things before now in 318, people would be happy. But now that you've done it so close, CIG is you're just gonna have people who are gonna be salty about it. Be like, well, I'm not as excited about this anymore because it sets a bad kind of taste in people's mouths for that.
There's an expectations versus reality meme there. I can't see it yet, but I know there's one there. I've just got to think of it.
There's a meme.
Yeah, I can see it there. You know, like box, and then he's like thinking.
You're right though, and you know if CIG got a little better about this, especially if they have the information. Obviously, you can't help development. Sometimes things just go wrong, and they go wrong at the worst possible moment. You have to say, I'm so sorry. This has broken at the last minute. We can't bring this in because this is not good. But if they know about something way in advance, things have changed internally. Maybe there's not enough communication internally about that stuff. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later as well. But tell people in advance so then people, as you say, can pare down their expectations. Go, well, okay, that's a bit of a bummer, but well, you will come across. It'll hurt in the short term, but you will come out a winner in the long term.
It's like you said, Loken, the cargo refactor would seem to be a thing at the end of last year, and it's now taken a whole nother year to come around, and it's just like one step forward. Like it feels like it was too little too late type of thing, but yeah, it was supposed to be this big, huge, immense, everything's changing, unload, all this business. Like, oh, it's going to be cool. This is a big feature,
Yeah, I mean, a good example of this as well for that is the whole C. I've seen so many people be like, well, the whole C is done, because for those who don't know, the whole C is finished, and it's
been done for a while, hasn't it? Like,
they did a retouch up on it, and like as of September, that retouch up was done. So the whole C is done. It could be put in the game tomorrow, according to CIG's own kind of like monthly reports, at least. It seems like, but they won't, because they're waiting for the cargo refactor, but this cargo refactor isn't going to be there. So when they talked about the raft and all that kind of stuff, and we had the whole C as well, so it's like,
can you think of another example, Loken, just while we're talking about
it? The Spirit is another one, I think, that we need to talk about as well. Spirit, and I mean, in terms of I'm trying to think of the right words here. In terms of communication or their lack of, we had some quite balked information in regards to what the spirits were going to and not going to do. Really, it got me, it got everybody. I was like, oh, it's going to be this. And then we get the Q&A and it's actually going to be something different. And that's a bit people's money that people are spending here. You know, people have gone and purchased something on the promise or the idea that it's going to do X, Y, and Z. That's not good. You can't do that.
And on top of that, like, I get that, you know, as there's some people who've been saying like, oh, well, if you've been following this game, you knew exactly, like the cargo thing where like everyone had the same amount of cargo. And it's like, well, obviously if you pay attention and if you follow the game, you know, that's not the case. It's an error. The answer is, yeah, but there are how many new people in this game since this year alone?
Tons of new people coming all the time. Game's growing.
That may have been their first concept sale, and it was that borked. That would leave a bad taste in some people's mouths.
Absolutely.
Not to
CIG
mention,
is not a small indie company anymore. They can't make those sorts of mistakes.
Not to mention how many people would be entitled to a refund because of that, like false information, that as well.
Absolutely. I get the idea that a concept sale is you're buying into a concept and it has a certain amount of leeway to change as it develops. But when you put out information which is so fundamentally incorrect and then you go and change that, it in fact actually fundamentally changes quite a lot of the way a ship perceived. Again, as Paul was saying, the CIG is not a small studio anymore. They're not a small indie. They have they're $500 million and growing. They've got 50,000 concurrent players, something along those lines, of just playing the actual game, which is a bloody alpha. That's more than a lot of big. I mean, that's more than New World. That's more than EVE Online. It's more than a lot of major titles. You know, you can't make mistakes like that, guys. You just can't. You know, you got to double, triple check that stuff because, well, you can put all the claims you want, but people's money is people's money. It's precious. It takes time to earn. If they're going to spend it, they want to feel as though they're going to give it to someone they can trust. And you break that by giving false information or wrong information. You know, it may have been the most honest mistake in the world, but you've got to be better at that. You can't screw around with this.
Yeah, CIG, what Loken is saying in short is it's time to put on your big boy pants. And I think the kind of last example that I'll go over then is the pairs stuff. You know, they kind of left that to like almost like a week before they kind of, you know, delayed it right back to December. And you must have had some kind, especially with a system that's so big, you must have had some kind of inkling along the way that it's like, yeah, we're probably going to miss this by a large margin, because especially if you dropped it back by 3 months, you know, it's a little bit last minute.
They should have done.
Yeah,
they really should have.
And
I think from my perspective, at least when it comes to PES, I think it's the only one where I could maybe forgive, only if I was a casual player, because PES as an actual concept is amazing. You know, I understand it more from the actual technical side of things and how it's going to change the game, and it's going to be the groundwork for so much more. But from a casual player point of view, it's not particularly glamorous. You know, it doesn't really. It doesn't change anything majorly from the front end, from the player's experience in the short term. So I can kind of get it. But again, especially for the longer term fans out there, people who follow development, people who are interested in the technical sides of the game, it's, again, an unacceptable situation to not be talking about that. As you say, it's a fundamental technology. The company should have known. So I was not spoken about.
It's R&D, you know, and so that's fair enough. Like it delays it to be expected, but again, like I said, you should have seen this. Like, is it just? There's no way I can see them going, all right, I'm hoping it'll be out there. Nope, gonna have to drop back this far. Like that just didn't make sense to me. But maybe there was something we're not seeing.
Well, they knew from ahead of time. Like they had to have known. It's something that's that complicated. They would have known that this is our goal. We're going to hit this. We're going to shoot for this goal. And we knew that they had started activating it in July or even June when Chris Roberts was talking about it on there. So like they've had years to work on this. And they've had months up to now to scope it properly, to be like, all right, this is what we're shooting for. And we know that they did. And the problem that I have with the PES stuff was that PES was always told to us as, this is the end of the 30K, where you crash out, you'll come back right exactly where you were before. You don't have to worry about those sorts of like issues. Like you can go out in the middle of nowhere and log out and come back in and be exactly the same. And all these, the things that make Star Citizen what a lot of people want it to be. And then they said, yeah, but it's not really going to do that now. It's just going to be 317, what we have with 317. And I get it's difficult to do that, but you should have told us this like a month before.
Yeah, I think
at least.
I think this 318 patch just like some other patches, and I think you guys would agree, there's just been a few times where the patch stuff hasn't been communicated properly. And this one probably sours a bit more than most because it was 3.17.0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, then 3.18. So it's been a very kind of slowish year. It's not our slowest year, but one of the slowest years, right? So just to see that incrementally tick over 1 has taken all the year. And I think we know it's a big patch because of that. So I think in a way we kind of were expecting, or we understand why there are delays from our point of view. But again, you're dealing with an adult, how do I say this, a more adult audience or an older audience that is more mature. And I think you need to treat us that way, because clearly there are people that are loud and minority, right? We know that from Spectrum and all this other stuff, but most of us will accept that and say nothing, right?
Yes,
and I don't know how to filter that, so because you've got to look at it from CIG's perspective. They're just hearing these complaints, but anyone that does any type of and you worked in marketing, didn't you, Paul? Right?
Yeah.
So anyone that does any type of stuff with feedback in retail, right? And I'm taking this from my little time that I did have in retail. They told me that you'll only ever hear from back about 4% of people is what I remember it being. That's so small. So if you kind of look at that across all of the community, if you're only hearing from 4% of people and they're all negative, you know, like, because you tend to only get negative comments, you never get positive, right? That's just how we are as people. People only complain when they want something fixed. And so that's 4%. You just got to go, right, so that means there's 96% that are either not telling me that they're unhappy with it, or they're unbiased, or they are happy, right? So when I look at it like that, it's hard to tell.
Well, I'll counter with this, that CIG has an entire team that's dedicated to player feedback. There's an entire team. And the thing about that entire team is that they're all made up of former content creators or players. So, and they all have experiences in statistics and other things like that. So like, they know what they're looking at, and they are the ones who are given often, like, who knows, this video may end up getting watched by one of them and used to talk to one of the leaders, because this is what they do. They do stuff like this, where they watch these videos, they look at Spectrum, and they pull these out. So CIG has those statistics. They know how many people are complaining versus how much it actually affects, you know, their bottom line or the average player experience. They have those tools. They just don't pull them out a lot. So
we don't say this shit, by the way, CIG, if you are watching, by the way, we don't say this shit to be assholes. We're saying this shit because we're trying to help you. It's not just better for us, but it's better for you. So, yeah.
But I mean, the other thing to point out is that, like, these are some big examples of the problems. And I think a lot of people, no matter who you are and where you fall on this topic, will say that those 3 examples had some impact on the player base, if not them themselves. Like they can see these as problems, and these are issues which are systemic, not necessarily issues which are just one-offs. Especially since they fell right alongside each other, you can tell that there's some sort of issues that have to deal with them talking about things, especially more negative things or things that they may screw up on that they don't like to. But
can I? This is a little bit off cuff, right? And I'm sorry about that. But can we talk a little bit about how do I put this? Do you think CIG internally should talk with their other departments more? Because I get a sneaking suspicion there is a lack of communication between, and I brought this up about the Odyssey, right? Is between marketing and, say, community team, for example, because I think the community team at CIG, kind of like what you said, how they've got all those people, the analytics and all that type of stuff, I've got a much better pulse on the community. There's only 4 of them, but I think I think when you are treading the water there, wouldn't you go to those people and go, what's the temperature at the moment? You know, so we're going to sell this ship X, and how we were thinking about doing it this way. You know, because the honest thing is, I find a lot of you tell me, Paul, because you're a marketing person, right? And you can weigh in on this too, Loken. they feel more like general gaming marketing people. They're not from the same. And I don't mean to say this is. It's going to. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's
yes.
This community is different. It's not the same as other gaming communities. It's more informed. We are on CIG's side. We are not out to kill them or get them or anything like that. We actually want this to succeed. But when you say shit to us like carrot killer and weird shit like it's an explorer, when it is clearly, it is a form of exploring, I will say that, but it is clearly a survey ship, right?
Yeah.
And when Algra didn't buy it, and he owns everything, that tells you something, right? I knew when Algra was going off his tree that there was something wrong, right? But yeah.
Well, as in for those of you who don't know, I come from a family of marketers. Worked in the family company as a kind of a brand manager and as like an assistant for a while, so I have some experience in this. And in general speaking, it feels like, and I've seen their budget, CIG's marketing budget is a joke.
Yeah,
it's a joke. They have like $2 million, and it's like marketing and platform are lumped into the same thing. And they've been trying to hire brand managers for some time, and I don't think they've hired them. So I think there's maybe a handful of people in marketing. And usually in marketing, you have a brand manager or you have a researcher. You do some market research where you can do things like polls and other things where you can pull people aside to say, hey, what is your experience and those sorts of things. But CIG doesn't seem to have that program. They have the feedback, but that it doesn't feel like that feedback is more tuned towards development rather than marketing.
I was just saying, I think you've just told us all why the website's so bad. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a bit.
It's an interesting point you make, Paul. And all I was going to add to that is that it feels like CIG is still. It feels like CIG, at least from my perspective, is still very much the mindset of it's an alpha development game. We're doing a thing. We're about the development, and it seems like down the road they have maybe truly grasp the idea of just how big a game it actually is. It's a game now. It's not just, a walk around the ship. It's not just the 2.0 hangars. It's, people are actively logging into this on a day-to-day basis and enjoying and engaging the content. And as a result of that, I feel as though there needs to be a mentality shift to where they do start to actually think, okay, we actually need to really push some marketing. And as Paul was saying, hire on some more hands for the ship so that this side of it is better. Because, like it or not, it might be alpha, but people are playing it like it's a release.
Yeah.
And they are putting serious hours of money into it.
4 hours on average a day is what Chris Roberts said. So
that's a lot of time. It's a huge amount of play time.
That means there's some person that's not on average, they're sitting there for 24 hours a day. No, I'm just kidding. You get what I mean? If it's on average, that means there's someone sitting there for quite a long period of time.
10 hours.
Yeah. You kind of hit on something there too. I was going to say you're kind of leaning along the lines of about CIG's growth. There, as they've grown up and we're moving from and I don't know how you feel, Paul, but one of the things I realized is just how it doesn't feel the same as it used to. It's getting like this bigger corporate type of mentality. Like I said, they've brought in more serious marketing people. It's not just Sandy and a couple of people in the back of the garage like it used to be. We don't just have.
Which to be fair, I think is still a good thing. You need more serious marketing people for a game the size of Star Citizen. Yeah. But
they've got to get the feel though, right? They've got to get the temperature of the community. And I've said this, man, I can't remember how many shows we've done on different things like this, but I've said a few times they just don't quite get the nuance of this community, and it's not exactly like other gaming communities. It's I can't even quite put my finger on it myself. I don't want to say we're more educated, but I think we're more informed might be the word I might use. We're like savvy shoppers. We like what Loken was saying with the spirit and the stuffing up of the data of the brochure on that and things like that. We were like, most of us looked at it and went, what? This don't make no sense. And even when they do Q&As, like silly questions on that, we sometimes get annoyed, but it comes from a place of passion. And I think I think that might be the key word there. We are very passionate about this game, and we want it to succeed. Where I think a lot of gamers, and I don't mean to belittle other gamers, but they'll come along and they're more casual. And
I will. I'll belittle every gamer. You know,
they'll move. You know, they move from game to game. Hey, I've been here for 10 years. You know, and I know that's not a boast. I'm just saying, but there are other people that have been here for a real long time as well. This game, I've waited 9 years for Abandoned Mansion. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
Right? That's like 3 times as long as you wait for a normal game. You know, so
and you'll be the first person to say, I take longer. I want a better ship.
100%.
You know. Yeah. I think CIG's grown, and it probably makes it harder for their teams to be able to communicate with us. And as much as CIG has grown because of necessity, I think that's one thing that CIG needs to take into account is that you need to. You're still a crowdfunded game. You need to talk with people, and as much as it's uncomfortable sometimes for some like individuals. On teams, like especially if you're working on a very important thing and you look at, you might watching this video or watching another video or seeing something super critical on it, and you're like, I don't like it because this is like, I got a lot of freaking pressure on me. There's a lot of eyes. That pressure will probably be relieved a little bit if you're more like, hey, let me talk about we're having this issue right here. I may not make it. Just keep a heads up on that one. That people can get mad no matter what you say. But that would relieve a lot of pressure on the rest of the community because you won't see people being like, where is the cargo refactor? Where is PES? What's going on in PES? That pressure, it's almost an employee health thing as much as it's going to be a better improvement for the community. But I think that has a lot to also do with staffing. Yeah. Like, look at CIG's website. CIG's website is got 100 people. Every month they hire new people, and every month they have more people they need to hire. It's like 100 to 200 people are still on the website. Let me look it up real quickly to give you the exactly.
It's a two-way street though too, because you want to have more people, but you might not be able to get more people as well. You know, it's a skill. Yeah. The other way you could look at it is a skill shortage. You know, so one of the things that I've thought of quite a lot is, let's just be bluntly honest, CryEngine is not the most popular engine, right? So
it's a terrible engine.
Yeah, so realistically, that just means there's less people that understand it, right? So
that's a good point, actually.
I've often wondered if say we'd used Unreal for this game, where would we be right now? You know, like, I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying I wonder where we would be. So yeah.
I mean, I can come from the perspective of somebody who's come out from recent education for games art design and for games design masters stuff. I was trained on Unreal Engine. I was trained in Maya. I was trained to use Substance Designer and Painter. You know, that is the pipeline I was trained to use, and on also Unity Engine. You know, these are the two major player engines. CryEngine is so, and obviously as a result of that derivative, Lumberyard Engine is so fundamentally different and did its own thing, and then kind of fell by the wayside for a time. I'm sure there's actually probably a fairly lengthy like training regimen that needs to go in for new hires to learn how to use the damn thing. Now,
it's at least
given them lots of flexibility to develop awesome tools that we've been seeing, you know, various Inside Star Citizens and other stuff. I mean, they've done an amazing job, but as Execute was saying, you know, if they had been using a more, let's just say, mainstream engine that has the support of a gargantuan mega corporation like Epic, we may be further down the road, you know?
Yeah.
And also it's easy to find talent.
There is negatives there though too, like, to be honest, like the tech and stuff like that.
Limitations.
In kind of sharing it with Lumberyard, they probably can keep a bit of that, you know, and the uniqueness of it, where if they had worked with Epic would just own all of it, you know? So
this is a good point.
Yeah. So there is a certain positivity there, because I one thing I brought up to Paul a few times, I'm so expecting other space games down the line.
Oh yeah.
Like once this is all done, you know, a Star Trek, a Star Wars, something like that, it'd be amazing.
That'd be pretty nice.
Yeah.
I'll be good for it.
Sign me up.
My point being, still, I looked it up. There's 130 positions at CIG, and for their entire company, which includes like 3D vehicle artist, AI programmer, animation programmer, art director, marketing, assistant producer, assistant business analyst, associate producer, audio director, backend engineer, brand manager, CRM specialist, character artists, character concept artists, community manager, content designer, core tech programmer, creative editor, embedded QA, director of marketing production, and I'm just game designers. So many game designers and gameplay programmers. This is a huge number of people, and so having staffing issues it can itself be a problem, because someone leaves and then you hire a new person, and that new person has to get up to speed, as y'all were pointing out as well, and that person may not be able to talk to the community.
So, all right, slight tangent. I've got to ask while we're on the point of that. Loken, doing the design stuff like myself, would you ever consider going there as a designer, or would you be far more likely to go it now from the content side? Would you rather go in there as if you had to work at CIG, would you rather go in there as more community focused, or would you rather go in there as design focused?
Very interesting you brought this up, because I've actually considered this very question quite recently. I was looking into to using some of the skills I got to go in and get a job, and CIG was one of the places I was thinking of applying to. It's complicated because there's personal feeling alongside of that. I love content creation, so for me, being on the side of the content or the PR side of it would be very appealing. But I am, as I said, I'm trained to use and do game design, so there's a lot of gigs there. Also, the problem as well, at least from my perspective, is I have stick in the game. I have skin in this. I love Star Citizen. It's my hype game. It's the game I'm looking forward to the most. So there is a part of me that's like the fanboys, like, ooh, I get to work for the company that's making the game I want. If I'm going to be realistic, though, I'm going to be completely realistic. I think I probably prefer going on the content side. Reason for that is, though they have a tough job, I think that I think it's probably a more rewarding one.
Well, it's similar to what you're already doing right now too. See,
that's what I'm doing. Yeah,
I have to go content because I've been out of the game for 15 years at this point. So I would be I could do the design stuff, but any of the art stuff that I used to do, like the level editing, the models, and all that stuff, I would be so like Paul said about bringing someone back up to speed. I feel like I would be so far beyond a year. I would. I don't know how long it would take me to bring back into the game. So I'd have to come at it from a community perspective as well. And I know, not to chuck Paul under the bus, but you'd have to be coming at it from a community perspective. Yeah, Paul?
No, I could go into marketing, but they would hate me in marketing because I would sit here and be like, well, because I'd sit there and be like, this marketing budget is a joke. I need to hire a company to figure out what the hell our demographic wants, and I'd find out what they want, and see, Chris Roberts would be like, this isn't what I want to do, and I'd be like, that's what I got to work with.
Exactly what they need, basically.
Yes, but what they need and what they want are two different things. And same thing. I've actually applied for CIG community in the past, and even their lore team, and I managed to talk with a couple people at CIG, and they were like, yeah, you're probably not a good idea right now, because they were looking for Galactica, who works there now, as their social media manager. I was thinking of applying, but Galactica is so much better. She's so much better at her job than I would ever be. And the guy who I was going to apply for the lore team writing team, and they said, yeah, they're looking for someone who has actual books out or some some published stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. And the guy who they hired, Jeremy Malul, is much better. He's very good at his job. So it's those were good positions. So I would also like to move forward a little bit in this discussion as well.
Well, I was just going to say that something that relates to that is also we were talking about us as content creators. So, and you kind of hit on this before the show about how the number of viewers that CIG get on their YouTube channel, we get a mere fraction of what they get by comparison. So can you alliterate on that a little bit better than I can, because I'm tired as hell, but you get what I'm trying to say.
So looking at all of our numbers here, we all make YouTube content, Loken, myself, and the Inforunners. The average number of views we get on Inforunners is between 2 and 10 at best, 10,000 views. The average is more like 4 to 5. My on the Astropub, I get on average 1 to 2 now, since I've done the split for my lore channel. Even my lore channel, my average is about 3 to 5. And Loken, I know you still sort of new, so you fluctuate between like 100 and like 1,000. Sometimes it goes a little bit higher, but the average number of views an ISE gets is 50K. Easy 50K. And like, you add up all of us, we could all talk about the same topic, and CIG will always have more views, even if they don't go into as detail as what we will do. And that's because it's the official channel. And even people like Board Gamer don't get nearly as many views as an ISC would get. And I think a lot of the stuff, the information is so dispersed in Star Citizen for CIG. It's just everywhere. And you kind of need a content creator to sit there and go through the monthly reports, go through the progress tracker, go through their various dev posts on Spectrum, on Reddit, on Twitter. Like, there are so many different avenues for communication that CIG has. They've gotten better at it, because it used to be much worse. But you kind of need someone to curate that and put it out there. But even if they do, we are so small in comparison to CIG's big megaphone. CIG cannot rely on content creators to tell people, to set expectations about what's going to happen. Because I could be as cynical as I want to be about, like, say, oh yeah, the cargo refactor is not going to be as extensive as people think it's going to be. And I could say that months before CIG releases the official change. But that doesn't set expectations properly. That may be, and some people won't even listen to me because I'm not CIG. So they're like, whatever, you don't know anything, Paul. And so they'll want to listen to CIG. So you can't rely on content creators exclusively to set the narrative.
I think the only difference there would be with content creators is we have this knowledge base, right? So I was listening to someone talk to me in our grid after the live stream this week, and he was saying the thing that really kind of blew my mind is that way you and Algrid just pull stuff out. Like, I can't tell you where I remember this from, or, but I remember it was this, and they talked about this, and they're like, but how do you know that? And it's like, well, because I've been here for 10 years, and I know you two gents are the same thing. Like, I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to say what, but I was watching a video today, and it came up on someone else's stream, but it was a IAE video from about 4 years ago. And believe it or not, it's relevant to something that's about to happen at AIE. And I wouldn't have found it if I hadn't seen the video again. What I'm trying to say is, there are things, this game is just so damn big, you can't contain it all anymore. And I think, like you said at the very beginning, Paul, is you can rely on content creators for details that you won't get from CIG. But like you said, we're never ever going to be as big as they are, because they're the official source. So
So you can't like let us set the tone, because we will never set the tone. CIG sets the tone.
That's it. We'll always have our own opinions. We'll always have our own skews on things. We'll always have our own personal biases as well. It is up to CIG's official channels to set the official expectation and the official line of what they're going to be doing, so that the community as a large can be informed, and those who are casual and only want to look at the main channel can go, okay, got the information, I know roughly what's going on, and then they'll go away. And then those who want more detail will go to people like Paul, they'll go to people like Execute and the Inforunners, they'll go to people like myself, and they'll get that extra detail. And the opinion pieces as well, because obviously it will be that.
So we probably, this next bit we probably should have talked about a little bit before, but you kind of hinted on it before, Paul, so I'll let you take that one.
I mean, like, all of this is saying is, like, if you're more communicative with us, if you're doing it on your own professional channels, if you're those sorts of things, there will always be people who are mad at you. You will never, ever get people who will not take a bad news good, that bad news well. You will always have people who are here just to pee in people's soup, in terms of just trying, because they want Star Citizen to fail. They hate CIG, and there are people who are always going to be negative, or people who are always going to have kind of a negative reaction to Star Citizen news. That's gonna happen. Never. And then there are also people who just won't take bad news very well, like people who are super excited but still don't take bad news. That's going to happen. And if you delay information because of being afraid of bad news, all you're doing is not taking off a Band-Aid. It's still, when you rip that Band-Aid off, it's still going to hurt. No matter what you do, it's going to hurt. So doing it sooner so you get over the pain quicker is better than letting it sit there for months and then ripping it off. Because you're still going to get the pain. It's still going to last the same amount, but it's a lot sooner, which means that people will move on and refocus on it. Yeah. So, you could also have a situation where you have bad news. You say, hey, this feature that we want to get, it may not make it to the next patch. Just giving you a heads up. Don't just set expectations. And then maybe that 3 months later, you go, oh, we got something good. We made it work and we're able to add it in. Now suddenly you can go, hey, we were wrong. We were able to get it done. Now you've under-promised and over-delivered. And those people who are mad at first will be more happy. So
comes back to what I said earlier about that loud minority, and I'd be curious to know what the stat is on it, and I'd have to do polls to figure it out. But if it's the same as retail, which is 4%, that's such a small minority to focus on. But when you're looking at Spectrum and Reddit and stuff like that, and they're the only people doing the talking, the funny thing is, CIG, you can set the narrative. You can ask the community this stuff, so
yeah.
If anyone was able to fix it, it would be you.
True. It's interesting to note as well. I mean, going back to what you gentlemen have both said, at the end of the day, the vast majority of the player base of Star Citizen, the vast majority of people who are interested won't say a damn word. They won't say a thing, but they will respect you and appreciate you for taking their time and their expectations into consideration. If you give them the news ahead of time and you treat them like they're individuals, they will never thank you for it. They will never say a damned word, but they will quietly keep supporting you, and they will feel better, and you'll get less overall whiplash and bad feeling. It's unfortunately it's unquantifiable, but it will be there. You can't put a metric on it because they don't talk. They just won't.
I do think as a community, though, we do give CIG a little bit of praise, you know what I mean? Like, probably more than most communities.
I'd say so, yeah. I'd say definitely in comparison to other games. CIG actually does get a lot of vocal good praise, a lot of vocal press, a lot of people saying, you've done good. I mean, let's take, for example, a game like Call of Duty. Do you think they get any good press? They just get people bitching about things and moaning about the balance. That's all I'll ever receive,
Yeah. It's almost like you can never do anything right with a game like that, but
exactly.
So, but I still, even though I think Loken's right, like I think the vast majority of people won't say anything.
Oh, and 100% agree.
And the honest answer, God answer is like whenever I hear someone complaining about the game, I go, look at how many people are playing the game. Look, like the people who are not playing the game are the people who are going to be the most negative because they don't like the game or they don't want the game to succeed. The people who are the most positive of the game won't be on Spectrum. They'll be in the game. They'll be talking in the in-game chat and hanging out there because they want to play the game.
See, there's some interesting data. The number of people that play the game as opposed to the number of the people that actually use Spectrum.
Yeah.
That would be some interesting data, right? And I don't just mean look on Spectrum. I mean that actively write on Spectrum, as in they post stuff, because I reckon
I don't.
Sorry, well, none of us do.
I don't use it.
Yeah, I was
developers don't even use Spectrum. I know developers who refuse to use Spectrum.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say who, but I was talking with another content creator, and he literally said the same thing. He says it's unlike any other community. You go to their forums, and they're really active and blah blah blah. And CIG's is the complete opposite. It's where people avoid it like the plague. Right, and that's how that's how, like, when I say things about downvote arrows and stuff like that, why am I saying that? Because I want to bring people back into the Spectrum. I want to have the discussion. It's like the official YouTube is where people go for the news. Where do you go to talk about this game? You don't. You don't.
Reddit or Discord.
They don't go to Reddit either. See, Reddit used to be really good as well, but that's another discussion for another time. But that Reddit's become polluted as well. Right, it's not the same as it used to be. It's like it's like one step removed from Spectrum. So it's a little bit better than Spectrum, but it's become polluted as well because I think Reddit over time has got more toxic. But that's a discussion for another time. So I actually think it's gone on to all the Discords. I think it's gone on to the content creator Discords, the org Discords, and stuff like that. But I spent a lot of time going between different orgs. that's, I can tell you right now, going between the different orgs, that's 100% where the discussion's happening. You want that information and that feedback, CIG, you need to change the way Spectrum works. It's pivotal. And I think that kind of brings us to our next point is Spectrum as a whole. So I'll say my bit that I always say, give us some downvote arrows. I always talk about this. One of the stats that Google bring out all the time is only 30% of people on the front page of a search engine actually go onto the second page. So if it's the same thing, if you kind of think about how they do a 10 questions or a Q&A or something like that, if it's a similar stat to where only 30% of people are going to the second one to vote people up, where everyone else is on the 70% and they're just voting the same ones up, you are never, ever going to beat that. Now, I don't know if you're deliberately designing it that way, but I'm as someone on the outside looking in at Spectrum, it seems more toxic than any other place I know because it doesn't have the downvote arrows. You can't remove things if you don't give us the control mechanisms to do so. We can't just keep going up and up and up because, as you said, you've basically put the emphasis on us to go looking for the good shit. Us gamers are lazy, yo. Like as Paul said, we don't even read, and you're trying to get us to read the forums. We're going to do that. We're just clicking the arrows. We're using the mouse, and that's all we're doing. So you need to change the way those tools work. I'm going to let you guys speak to it. You can tell I'm frustrated, but
well, no, I mean, and I think that goes to the harder things as well. Like developers, I have talked with developers who refuse to use Spectrum. CIG developers who just do not want to go to Spectrum. And it's the place they're supposed to be giving the feedback because they don't like it's toxic. Like there is, for people that know, there's a dev tracker on the website, front page. If you want to know what devs are saying, it's literally on the front page of their website. You can see every developer, their posts on Spectrum. Tells you everything they've said, from the most mundane corrections to announcements about patch results to like very detailed responses about various different things. And some people like Yogi, for instance, is fantastic about that. He's always on there talking. But there's like maybe 5 or 6 people on Spectrum who talk. And I understand why the vast majority of developers who may be more involved in the game don't go to Spectrum because it's a toxic hellhole. And like that is a big, huge part about it as well. Is like for communication purposes, use Spectrum. And you want people to use Spectrum because it's your platform that you spent a lot of money and time building. It should be there. But if it's so bad that it's not even good enough for like the mental health of the average employee that they don't want to use it. It's a money sink, and that would be a huge boon to communications because while people don't necessarily read, at the very least, someone could say it was on this dev post. You can see it, you can find it. It's pretty easy to find it, which is one of the rare things for the website. The website's garbage. Like at the very bottom of that web page, it's the dev tracker. It's just easily just to scroll down and it's there, and that's a better place to get information than having to find it on a Board Gamer video or a summary from Super Mac Bros. Both fantastic creators, but that's not their job to tell everyone what to communicate about Star Citizen. That's your job, CIG.
I think that's the kind of cruel irony of Spectrum is I think they designed it with the intention to make it less toxic, but it has ironically made it a lot more toxic than they ever expected it to be. And I think I think it's one of the biggest things they could do to improve communication. I think it's sat there for so long and so out of sight and out of mind, it's almost been forgotten. But yeah, what about you, Loken? Do you think that's a big thing, or what's your take?
It's tough for me to really. I want to comment on it, and I do want to talk about it, but it's like I'm sitting here thinking and wondering if I have a solution to it, and I don't know if I necessarily have an easy fix solution to this, or at least suggest.
Do you think they could just try downvoting arrows for 3 months and see if it improved it?
Definitely, I think the fundamental thing is, yes, I do agree that downvoting arrows should probably be a thing. I don't see why it shouldn't be, but more to the point, I think they need to. Whatever they do, they need to fundamentally take a good hard look at Spectrum, see where it's at, and put some serious time and effort into improving the overall platform experience. Because as you so rightly stated, conversations that should be occurring on Spectrum and should be, as a result, therefore being in a public forum of places where developers can take a look at it, are happening behind closed doors, inside of Discord servers, inside of, all locations. And as a result, that information is being lost or dispersed, which can be very helpful to take a temperature check of community. It can be very helpful to take a temperature check on how, features are being received, and where feedback can go to improve the overall development of the game and just give you a better idea of what your community is doing. Now, unfortunately, as I say, I don't necessarily have a suggestion as to how that can come about and be a reality. I'm sure there are people who are far smarter and paid a lot more money than I am who can take a look at that and redesign and reiterate on Spectrum. But Spectrum, I don't go there for a good reason, because, as you guys said, it is toxic. It is really bad. The only people who talk there are usually really, really very fierce, polarizing opinions that go on there. And it's just, yeah, of course the developers don't want to go there. The developers are, they're busting their butts to make the game. They're not trained to deal with that level of potential abuse, especially if it's something they've worked on. You take yourself perspective of a developer who spent 6 months to a year developing a feature, and then you've got some Tom, Dick, or Harry on Spectrum just absolutely tearing it to shreds. You're gonna go, fuck you,
Can you imagine how much that would change developers' perspectives if we're on there downvoting these, so they don't appear?
They don't have to see it.
Exactly. So it would help.
It would at least curate
because as we've said, people might not say anything, but they still do things, right? So if you can, anonymously downvote something, you will do it.
Yes, and you will contribute to that health. The other thing I wanted to mention as well is that in regards to the website front page design, I am looking at it right now on one of my monitors, and it's an okay looking website, don't get me wrong, but I don't actually like how closed and how closeted the development tracker is. I think that needs to be its own physical thing. It's under the subheading of development, but it's underneath a whole bunch of other information, like the flashy countdown to IAEs on right now. I think that needs to be in its own area, which is a bit more easy to find.
We've actually joked. We have a brainstorming document, don't we, Paul? And one of the ones that we have there, we had a series called "Can We Fix It?" and literally one of them is "Can we fix the website?" Because seriously, that may be a video we do over this summer, because it needs a massive overhaul. And now I look at this from a staffing issue. Maybe it is a staffing issue. That's why they've never touched it. But again, if we were to look back at it, everyone talks about it, from the new play experience to how it's affecting sales and all that type of stuff, how it looks like different websites on different segments of the website.
Yes, it does.
It's obviously at that state, though. If you kind of look at it from a development perspective, they're probably going to fix it and give it a gold star pass. What do they call it? A gold pass.
Gold pass.
Just before release, or something akin to that.
It's really interesting you mentioned how different parts that look like different websites, because don't they make specific special web pages just for those concept sales, just for those IAE things? And those ones are freaking wonderful the way they're designed. They're so clean, they're well designed, it all funnels you to the right information, the UI is good. And it's you need to do that for the whole thing. You need to unify that, because ultimately, okay, great. It's good for the event. It's good for IAE. It's good for your spirit concept sale, even if you do bugger up your information. But, the website needs to be like that. Your front page to your entire game and your project, you need to improve this. This really needs to be.
Let me add this as well real quickly. It says it has a live stats page is the first thing you see on the website. No. Don't do that. That's terrible. No one cares about live stats. They care about the game. Why is that even there? There's just some interest. The com links is good. The shows are good. The dev activity maybe be its own little tab, as you said. But there is a lot of things you could have done. You could do to improve the experience where a person who doesn't know what the hell Star Citizen is can get an information about it. So
yeah.
Sorry.
There's some things I find a bit weird about how the game is. So just giving a thing here that's probably a bit of a heads up, but we've been working on a tutorial series, me and Badgers, right? And one of the, even just how to download the game is weird, right?
Yeah.
So you normally like download a launcher and then it'll prompt you to go, oh, you need to make an account. So here, as you make an account, and then you go like, so if you want to ship, you have to go buy it. And it's all kind of done through the launcher in most other games. But this, you've got to buy a ship before it even let you download it.
Yes,
it's just so weird.
It is. It's like the legacy of like things that they put in because it was good enough at the time, and they just haven't gone back to just clean it up, you know, just to rejig it, just to improve the flow. And yet all these little things add up to such a huge difference in a person's experience.
And with Star Citizen growing as it is, this is no longer a priority issue. Like I get like, you know, it wasn't a priority. It's got to be a priority. Because it's going to start to affect not just the like overall experience of buying, but it's going to start affecting like how people perceive the game and how we talk about communications, how people can understand.
You're a $500 million fucking company right now, or invested company. You're not playing in the small leagues. You're playing with big money. You need to be putting yourself forward to new potential players. As a big money company, you are now going to be compared to Grand Theft Auto, to Call of Duty, to Battlefield, to the biggest franchises out there. I know Battlefield isn't doing so well recently, but that's the place you're playing in. That's your pool. You know, you got to bring the A game, and I just don't think they are in certain instances.
Yeah, that's another couple of videos right there. I'm not even kidding, but like, but I just had this thought going in my head, and I know it's a tangent. But I just want to ask really quick, can you imagine if it was free to play, but you get no vehicles? And so basically you can go in and other people can take you around in their ships. But as soon as you want to kind of do your own thing, you've got to buy your own ship so you can go around.
I'd hate that idea. It's a terrible idea. But
it would allow you to experience the game to like try before you buy, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's why they have free flights. I think free flights.
I think achieve that well enough, and I think they have them frequently enough to where it doesn't feel like it's a joke. They used to only like do one a year. Now they do about 4 or 5, which feels a bit better. I can see the argument that might be a good on release type argument to get players in the door once they're actually here's the finished game delivered. But right now, I don't know if that necessarily would be the best way forward, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I get you. Let's come back onto track. I'm going to pull us back on track because we're almost done here.
Sorry.
Here we are.
I will also like to say this because, and I'll ask Loken this mostly because you brought this up as well. Star Citizen is not a typically developed company. It's a game. It's a very different type of game. Do you think that the fact that there are 4 community managers, because again, you have a lot more interaction with community managers than either of us because you deal with a lot of different games because you get sponsored to play games and kind of stuff like that. Do you think there is enough community managers for a game like Star Citizen right now?
Simply put, no, absolutely not. I think Star Citizen is a unique game. I actually went so far as for my undergrad year 3 thesis, I wrote about crowdfunding games, and Star Citizen was the main focus of this. I've done a lot of thinking about the game and how it's different, and ultimately you are in uncharted territory. You've got this, as I said at the beginning, this is the biggest crowdfunded game ever. All eyes are on CIG right now to see if this is actually a viable form of crowdfunding to create and, deliver AAA products for the future. This may very well alter the way other games of a sufficient or significant size go about their financing. The point is, though, is that because of that difference, because that they are, instead of having 1 or 2 major investment companies who can just kind of waltz into the office and go, right, so what's the report then? What's going on? Where's my money going? They are thousands, tens of thousands of micro investors, people who have, $100. Actually, honestly, there are people who aren't even micro investors. There are people who have tens of thousands of dollars invested into the game. They're not micro. The point is, though, is that they are afforded as a result of that, or should be afforded, a level of transparency, a level of communication, which should be akin to that, and to warrant that level of investment of money. The amount of community management that is available needs to, as a result of all of this, reflect it. This is we are not in charted waters. CIG is doing something different, something new, and this is something that they can influence they can influence how this goes. And it just feels as though that they need a much larger body of community managers, a much larger body of people going around the various offices, because they're dispersed between 5 different offices across the globe, gathering the information, gleaning the information, getting it from people, so that's better interdepartmental and from development department to community department communication, so that this can be effectively spoken about. And this requirement and need is only going to increase as the scope and scale of the game increases, and ergo the publicity of the game increases. It's just the nature of this beast. It's one of the best parts of it. It's also one of the worst parts of it. And this is a factor that's fairly unique to Star Citizen, because, and I'll finish my tangent here. You look at another very large release like Cyberpunk, for example. I'm going to use that because that's one of the biggest marketing campaigns and biggest releases we've seen in recent history. Obviously, it didn't go very well for other reasons, but its marketing campaign was an absolute masterstroke. They did so good at generating hype, and they also did so good with the community management. Yet, there is only about 3 or 4 people on that team, maybe even less. They had Holly Bennett, who was doing this live streams, and she was doing a lot of the actual front-facing communications. Then there are a couple of other people, and that was it. And that's for a very large, high-profile game. But again, because it's different, because it's traditional games, because it's developed differently, they didn't need that level. And if CIG, for a second, believes or feels that they can go down the traditional community management route, then I wholeheartedly disagree.
Even the funding model's different too. So that, and they link up, don't they? The funding model and the community. Yeah, 100% agree.
Our expectations as a community is a lot higher. We want more transparency because it's our money on the line, but not, I'm sure you gentlemen are all, you've got a fair amount, as I say, skin in the game. Our expectations and our want and desire and our hunger for knowledge is increased as a result. And also, one other point I want to point out is, due to the fact that this is a crowdfunded game, the majority of players who are crowdfunding it are slightly older. They're not going to get a bunch of 14, 15-year-old snot-nosed kids who have downloaded it because mummy's, bought the new Xbox title for this year. These are people who are going out earning cash.
You were when it started, though, Loken, right?
I was. I'm weird.
It's been that long, though. That's what, sorry. But yeah.
It has. Yeah. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah. But my point is that the expectation is different because the age demographic is different. We want a little bit more. We need a little bit more.
I think that's also because we've been here for so long too. We want more.
Yes.
Because we've just been, we're waiting and we're waiting. Come on, give us shit while we're waiting.
Well, we're not impatient, Yeah. We're not impatient. We wait, but we just want the information because we're excited at the end of the day.
That's it. Yeah. Passionate.
To put this into context as well, CIG has a dedicated social media manager, which is Galactica. Fantastic. At her job, she does really, really well. She's an experienced. She used to work for World of Tanks and World of Warships, and she now works for CIG. And you've got Jake, who's from the community, who did a bunch of the stuff, who's now currently working for them. You've got Ulf. You've got I want to say he's Wayne, but that's not his real name. He goes by Wayne on Twitter. I can't remember his name. It's Chris. Christian. It's Christian.
You missed the joke, but that's fine.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne. I get it. Yeah.
There it is.
It's like Chris.
Be here all week. Yeah.
It's like Chris or Christian, I think his name. And then you have Xylo. Yep. So you have like that. That's about it. You have like 4 or 5 people, and only 2 of them are for Europe. Like Ulf is Germany. I think
Ulf is the European one.
Yeah, he's the European one.
Yeah.
But you have nobody to deal with the French community. You have Ulf. It's just Ulf, and French community is huge.
A very good point.
You need
localized ones.
Like there's just no one for Korea. There's or China.
No Australia. Not that Australia really needs one because we speak bad English, but we still speak the same language you guys do. You get my point.
Yeah. If you recently, did you see the size of the Singapore Bar Citizen? There was a fairly considerable turnout of people there. Like, they don't have a local community manager, and I'm thinking to myself, as Paul was saying, how soon is it before they're actually going to need, and it actually is required, that they have it in local dialects and local, a translated variants of community management for those players, because it's a global community.
Yeah, and on top of that, they don't even have someone who's in charge of content creators. We talk about how Star Citizen's main marketing push is content creators. They don't have a single content creator specialist for the community team, which is odd because other community teams do have a content creator liaison, and CIG does not. And yet it is literally the backbone of their marketing for the last 10 years.
The content creator liaison will usually be part of the PR team, and they absolutely will have one or two. I've known games that have had three, because there's just a lot of it. There's a massive campaign going on. So,
and usually they hire someone outside. They usually hire a company or something like that. But CIG doesn't. But CIG is so big and it's in its current state. They need someone who is that sort of level. I mean, Ulf, I think, is technically doing that right now. But that's okay, Ulf is doing that. He's doing all of the European bar citizens and content creation, and probably even translating some things. It's Ulf is doing 3 or 4 jobs when he should just be doing one. He should be. And I think he's the head of community. Tyler's the director of community, but Ulf is the head of the community of the department for community. Don't get me
wrong; these guys are champions. They do so much good work. They put their absolute heart and souls into it. They just need more. More.
Well, I think you kind of nailed it there, Paul. If he's doing 3 jobs in one, there should be 3 of them.
There should be, and that would improve communication as well. Because if there's more community managers to just chase down a dude and be like, "Yo, I need to know this now," that they would be able to get that information to us. Because I mean, if anyone can talk to Jake, and Jake will be very, very frank with you, is that if he knows the information, he's going to tell it to you if he can. There's very little filter between the what developers doing and what information comes out. It's just that information needs to somehow get to them or somehow get out that direction. And that may just be because someone like Jake has to do 16 different jobs, or Ulf has to do 14 different jobs before they even get to talking to the community about a development update. So
interesting to see what develops. It's going to be interesting to see where things go, because as we said right at the very beginning, there's a lot of things they're doing right. There's a lot that they can improve on, and it's tough because it is hard. I don't know how to put this. As a content creator, I feel like I'm a little bit in the middle, right? Where I'm not saying we're a buffer for CIG, but
we're a buffer for CIG.
Well, you don't want to be a shield of CIG, but you also you are a backer as well as a content creator. 9 times out of 10, and the community themselves, they sit there and wonder. There are people that will sit in our Discord and they will ask questions because they don't have the answers that they seek, and it's frustrating. I think it is kind of where it's at. There's a disconnect, and I think it needs to be fixed somehow. Yeah,
I think fixing it will improve it'll improve the developers' mental health. You'll have less problems with the community. You're always going to have people who are going to complain, but overall, it'll just be better for people who are interacting with the community, and better for the developers, and better for the company, and better overall for the game.
Do you know what it weirdly reminds me of? I used to do some volunteer work for a call-in center for people with divorcing couples that couldn't work with each other, and it actually reminds me most marriage breakdowns come from communication issues. And it feels a little bit like that now I think about it. And I know that's a really weird way to look at it, but if we can communicate better, I think a lot of this stuff will resolve itself. I think some of the toxicity will go away. I think the developers will feel better. You kind of hit the nail on the head, Paul. Everyone's mental health will improve. And we are a more mature community, and I think we can handle it. And this is where the struggle.
Big boys and girls, CIG.
Well,
big boys and girls, we can take it.
But that's where the struggle is. There's people that have also shown that they can't handle it.
But not everyone's going to ever be able to take it. That's the majority will. That's the answer.
Well, that's why I'm coming back to the spectrum thing, because the way it's set up at the moment, you're only hearing that negativity. Where if we can help you remove some of the negativity, you'll realize we aren't all like that.
No, we're not. Vast majority of people I talk to on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, even new people come into the stream for the first time, they're like, "This game's freaking awesome! Oh my god, the community's so nice! Oh, you're so helpful!" That's the vast majority of the stuff I hear is positive. There are some negative people, and they tend to just want to shout and scream about whatever they are wanting to shout and scream about. They're usually uninformed and they'll go and bugger off afterwards. But I think CIG needs to realize that's actually the majority of the narrative is fairly positive. It's just doing better.
Actually, you mentioned the narrative there. Most of the people that come into this game, the narrative has been set by the outside media. Right?
Yes.
That's where I find most of the negative I get from. And then that person comes in and if they actually give it a go and have a look, their whole tune changes.
So, especially just talking to the community, how easy it is.
You know what blows my mind the most is that I still, to this day, have people coming into the game and going, "Can you buy ships in game? Do you have to spend thousands of dollars in ships?" And I go, "No, you just need to buy the first pledge pack, $45. You get alpha beta release. And you can buy all the ships in game." It's just things like that. People still don't know that you can do that. The game has changed so much. It's not like a pyramid scheme where you've got to spend millions of dollars.
But that's how it's been portrayed. And I think that almost comes back to like you were saying. Like I think a lot of traditional publishers, they want to see this thing fail because it'll disturb their model, and big companies don't like change.
No, they don't. Absolutely not. I wouldn't be surprised if I put my tinfoil hat on for a second. Some of those wonderful PC Gamer and Kotaku articles are maybe just, can you just be a little bit worse about the 500 million mark? Yeah, hasn't released yet, 10 years.
So when I clicked the record button, I didn't think we'd be at the hour and 20-minute mark when we were talking about this, but we are. So Loken, and I'll put this to you too, Paul. But Loken, what would you like to hear from some people in the comments below? What's some things some key points you'd like them to hit on?
I would love to hear their opinions on how they feel that Spectrum could be improved, and how we can improve that as a whole. I would also love to hear their own experiences with their perceptions of Star Citizen when they got into it versus outside of it. So were they brought in recently? Did they think the game was crap before and a friend said, "Nah, it's really great," and they got in like, "Oh my god, this place is amazing"? I'm really interested to hear what people's narrative was when they weren't in the game to now they are in the game. But Spectrum and those two, I think I'm really curious to hear about.
Paul,
I'd love to hear y'all's discussion about like, do you want information? Would you be okay with bad information sooner rather than later? Like as soon as it comes out, like this is not going to happen, or would you rather just like not hear about it, or just like let it go? Because just let me know. Let me know about that. The other thing I would say is how much information would you need to feel like CIG is being transparent?
Yeah.
How much information, with the caveat, understanding that there are some legal limits to which they cannot do, including things like cameras inside studios, which I've heard not jokingly talked about before, and like the other issues like that. How much would it take for you to feel like they're being transparent enough for you?
This was like you want them to walk around wearing glass or something, but I think for me, I'll keep mine simple. How would you guys feel about them doing a trial on Spectrum with downvote areas? Because I think if it starts there, I think that's where I think we can start there, see a bit of positivity, and it'll probably snowball from there. So I think that's the place it needs to start, the official place. I think that's where it's got to begin. So let me know in the comments your thoughts on that, guys. With that, Paul, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Twitch.tv/the Astropub, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/the Astropub live for my gaming content, for Captain's Table and Office Hours. And if you want lore, you want to know about the lore and more, you can go to youtube.com/the Astrohistorian. So.
And real quick, what's your favorite ship again?
Not the Redeemer. Not the Redeemer.
It's the Redeemer, by the way, Loken. Anyway, Loken, where can people find you real quick, Loken?
So as I said, you can find me twitch.tv/Lokenplays. I'm there Tuesday through Friday, 9 p.m. GMT, 4 p.m. EST. You can also find me on YouTube, youtube.com/Lokenplays, and TikTok, which is @Lokenplays as well.
All right, with that then, he's been Astropub, he's been Lokenplays, I've been Execute, and we'll catch you in the next one.